people within an organization are the absolute crust of its success. Here at Sargento, we're a third generation family owned company. So our founder is actually the grandfather of our current CEO. And he had a philosophy at the time that he founded the company, which was literally in a carriage house in his backyard at the time. It was hire good people and treat them like family. And we have used that as our ethos for our culture. And not only does that just make everyone feel good, it gives you this way of being. So even if you're new to the company, you understand, okay, we treat each other like we're family members. That may mean that we disagree sometimes, but we're respectful. We care about each other. We know each other as individuals. We believe that we're in this life together for a greater good.
Welcome to the Chad Carden Podcast, where people and culture make all the difference. Our guests are real leaders that are making real impact by creating even better cultures and even better results. We're going to talk about things that most people aren't talking about. We're going to talk about things that leaders are thinking but might be scared to say. We're going to get into issues that can give you practical and tactical ways to set you up for a higher probability of success. Let's get after it. Welcome to another episode. I'm excited about this one. I get the chance with the seat that I sit in to meet some really interesting people, really interesting organizations doing some crazy, amazing things. And I told my wife today I was going to have somebody on from Sargento, and she wanted me to tell Holly, who's my guest, I'll introduce in just a minute, that we are a big fan of Sargento, and especially the cheese, obviously, but especially the I think it's the balanced breaks. Those things, that's a go-to. It's a staple in our family. So, Holly Baumgart, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Chad. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Again, I get to see a lot of different verticals, a lot of different spaces. I don't know if I've been in this space, so I'm just selfishly interested in this. But what I'm hoping for the audience to get out of this one, a couple things. I had a chance to talk to you prior, just kind of setting up the podcast, is how things are always evolving, right? It's always evolving. There's evolution in everything that you do. You're part of a family business that has grown obviously into a large business, but just also your take on kind of putting people first. So that's what I'm interested in. But let's start here. Why don't you give the listeners just a little background of Holly, who you are, kind of your journey up to where you're at today.
Sure. Yep. So I'm Holly Baumgart. I work here at Sargento. And unsurprisingly, for a cheese company, we're located in Wisconsin. And what I do in my role is design and develop new products that you would see in the grocery store, which is a ton of fun. We get to understand consumer mindsets, have talking about culture, very innovative culture. It's part of our company vision. And really to be successful in that marketplace at the grocery store, to stand out to consumers, we've got to come and bring exciting new products that they love to try, taste, and enjoy at home. And so it's a lot of fun when you get to finally see a product that you've been working on for several years, maybe longer, in the grocery store, and see consumers buying it and excited about it, which actually happened to me today. I was in the grocery store and someone in front of me grabbed a product that my team developed and put it into their shopping cart. So it was like, yeah, it's a lot of fun when you get to see that.
I want to dig into that because for an everyday consumer, we don't really know the ins and the outs that goes into that. I just think that's an interesting, that's in your space, and I want to dig into that. But let's back up just for a little bit. Talk to us about how you got to Sargento, how you got to your role, how long you've been in leadership. Kind of walk us through, that journey.
Yeah. So I started working here about 9 years ago. I've had a really interesting career path. I started as our VP of IT, so I was really leading up technology for the company, which is a super cool space to be in. Love that. I grew up in technology and came and led that organization that way. Then I also had the opportunity to be in charge of strategic planning here, and did some mergers and acquisitions work and led our strategic planning process. And then my next role is now in new products. And you look at that and you think, wow, there's so different fields. I get a lot of questions about, well, gosh, how did you move from one space to the other? Because it's a unique career path. but I often find that when you're moving to different roles, there's more parallels between those roles that meets the eye. And oftentimes, when you get into a new role, whether that be something totally different, you find ways to leverage the knowledge that you've had from past positions or experiences in new ways, and that's part of the fun, and it has been for me here at Sargento.
Yeah, you mentioned, with IT strategy, new products, and you mentioned that at the core of that, and Sargento is a family business, but it's not, I mean, if you look at it, it's huge. I mean, it's not like a little family business. You mentioned that people are sort of at the core of this. Talk to us about how people, from your opinion, how do people play an important role to continuously grow and innovate as, an organization?
I think people within an organization are the absolute crust of its success. Here at Sargento, we're a third generation family owned company, so our founder is actually the grandfather of our current CEO, and he had a philosophy at the time that he founded the company, which was literally in a carriage house in his backyard at the time. It was hire good people and treat them like family. And we have used that as our ethos for our culture ever since. And not only does that just make everyone feel good, it gives you this way of being. So even if you're new to the company, you understand, okay, we treat each other like we're family members. That may mean that we disagree sometimes, but we're respectful. We care about each other. We know each other as individuals. We believe that we're in this to get life together for a greater good. And that message has just resonated and kept, really been able to keep our culture as a whole and going over now almost 75 years.
Yeah, and that's so you've 75 years, you've been involved in this for 9 years. You've seen a lot of growth in your 9 years, I'm sure, right? The company
Hmm.
continues to expand
Yes.
and grow. How difficult is that to keep that core principle at the heart of everything as you grow? Because again, it's no, you're not a 10-person shop, right? As you continuously grow, is it hard or do you guys find it easy because it's just part of who you are and it's part of your DNA?
I don't think it's easy. I've worked at a couple different places that have all had really exciting and unique cultures, and I can share more about that. But I don't think it's an easy thing to do necessarily, but the companies that can do it, it can become a competitive advantage for them. And I do think it starts out with the why and a true story of why that works for that organization. So you can't make up a marketing spiel about this is our culture. You can't just come up with something and put it on the wall. It has to come from really the inside out, the ethos, the story, and it has to resonate with people. And if you have that at the base, then it's about keeping something wonderful alive. And we when we interview people, I think that's to your point about people being the most important element of keeping a culture alive. We interview everyone to understand whether we think they're a fit for our culture in a pretty deep way. So it isn't just like, oh yeah, are they a fit or not? We look and ask questions, and we look for people that have demonstrated that they are in alignment with this culture of being able to treat others like family in a work environment.
Yeah, I think that's a huge nugget. If just to double click on it, I want to be intentional about bringing this to the forefront because again, sometimes, and this is not a negative, but sometimes, Sargento or organizations do this so well that sometimes they forget, the challenge of this, right? Because it is who you are. And you mentioned you hire for fit and you take that seriously. It's not just to check the box or a slogan on the wall. It's something that is really part of the fabric of decisions that are made inside the
Mhm.
organization. And I think that is key. I think a lot of organizations maybe say they do that, but ultimately sometimes they're hiring out of desperation, right? They're hiring
Sure.
just because they
Yeah.
need people versus kind of a mission based hiring. So I think that is something that is authentic with you and authentic with Sargento. And you're right, it can play a huge competitive advantage and role just in creating an environment that people enjoy working in, feel comfortable in, and know that there's an opportunity for continued growth, both with the organization and with them. I think that's key. I think a lot of times in my journey, I've experienced this, and not to talk negatively or bad about your other experiences because I don't know them yet. You're going to dive into those, but I think there's organizations that truly believe that people drive results, right? And they're at the heart of it. And there's other organizations, not right or wrong. They grow and they've had success, but they believe that they're results oriented and that's what they're going to focus on. And if people don't get on the bus, then no problem. They'll find other people that can get on the bus, right? And so it's kind of an inverse of people driving results. Have you always experienced that with your previous organizations, or has the culture been potentially different? Not maybe bad, but different, in your career journey?
So before I worked at Sargento, I worked at Harley Davidson, so the
Oh,
corporation, and very distinctive company culture as you can
yeah.
surely expect, right? Before I worked there, I worked at EY, which is a phenomenal large scale advisory services firm, and I was in the Chicago office. So moving from that type of environment to a motorcycle manufacturer was very different, right? So I went from wearing a navy suit to wearing skulls and leather at the office
Yeah.
every day. So I think what for me culture is fun because you can look to what things do you like about that as you evolve your career and can enjoy when you're part of that organization and glean from. And as an example, at Harley, we we wore the badge of that company on our clothing, and we did things outside of work that was part of that company culture. It ended up being a ton of fun for all of the employees and a way to connect, to have a bigger purpose in our work there. It was part of our lifestyle. So I think, as companies that have a lifestyle brand or a product offering or something that's unique about them, as you bring that into part of your culture, it can be an asset for your cultural development and something that people can really grab onto and love. And so, I always encourage companies to lean into that, lean into what you know and do well. And that can be part of that cultural ethos that really resonates with the people that work there, as companies create an employer brand and that cultural experience.
Yeah, you've been blessed, even though they're different environments, but kind of the same principles show up, right? How do you create a culture that it's fun and people enjoy and they like working in? And again, there's obviously growth. So you've been blessed in your career. As a leader, I know you kind of were just that you were introduced to that at EY and then Harley and now Sargento, but have you always had that belief, or have you always had mentors that had that belief, or did that sort of evolve and grow with your career, that people truly are at the heart of impacting results?
I think, for at least for me, I knew that even before you started your career, right? That people are the center, people and connection is the center of kind of how things happen in the world. And so you inherently know some of that. But as you start to work in a corporate environment and grow, you can see where cultural elements of an organization help the company and maybe lack of it or unclarity or uncertainty or eroding culture. You can start to feel and see that it isn't helping in the end. So I think you know it inherently in your heart, but over time your experiences can help lend yourself to understanding it at a deeper level, and tips and tricks on how to improve it and leverage it over time.
Yeah, so let's dive into that, because
Yeah.
I think there's so many leaders today that struggle, right? They struggle. Sometimes, a lot of times, mid-level management struggles because they're kind of caught up in, they're getting asked to do more with less, and there's a lot of noise and a lot of plates that they're asked to spin, and they can only control so much, right? We always kind of talk about controlling the controllables. So if you're talking to a leader that wants to impact his or her team, and they might not be able to control the entire organization. Maybe they can't even control the department they're in. Maybe they can just control their team. What would be some tips or best practices that you would give to leaders that would help create a better environment with their team, a greater connection with their team members, set their team members up for success? What would be some of Holly's, 3 to 5 things that you would throw out there?
Sure. I think it boils down to treating an individual as somebody special that you value. And some of the ways that you can do that, at least that I've found have worked, are knowing people's individual needs. And certainly if you have a large team, that can be tough for every single person.
Sure.
But I've had large teams and I've still reviewed every single person's individual development plan and at least known one or two things that they are working on. And I've taken the time to do that. And I think it does matter because people can tell that you care about them and that you care about their development paths and that you work to try to open up doors for them or provide opportunities for them to develop, even if they're small things. So I think career development and advancement is something that everybody wants, right? So if you have a leader that can take the time, that truly cares and demonstrates that they care, it can go a really long way with the team, as well as recognition for when they've done a good job. So we all talk about recognition as something that's important, but we often talk about it, but not everybody takes the time to implement a process that works, and also figures out how to recognize people in the way that they want to be recognized. So, certain things that we do or that I've done is taken time out of valuable leadership meetings to really evaluate how we're recognizing people, track our progress on recognizing people, ensure we're doing it, having distinctive action plans against recognition. And, that can easily fall by the wayside when we're busy, but if you take the time to do it, it can really matter to people.
Yeah, you said a couple things in there that I want to highlight. One is really be sensitive that each individual is his or her own individual, right? And really tapping into what are their interests, what do they want, what are their needs, how do they want to grow? Really understanding that on a professional, personal level, but really tapping into that, and then as a leader, helping support that. But the other thing that you said, which to me is, and you mentioned it like 5 times in that answer right there, was take the time. I think a lot of times leaders feel like they don't have the time, but that time invested pays off. It's almost like, short-term shortcuts create long-term headaches, but short-term investments and taking the time and understanding your people can really create long-term dividends. Do you believe that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I had a large team when I was running IT here, and I still met with each person individually. I think I got good feedback from that people said, okay, she's running our department. She's probably really busy, but she's taking time to sit down with all of the new employees, all the employees that, work at the help desk, part-time employees, and just talking to them to get to know them about what they're looking to do in their career and how I can help support them really goes a long way. So I think you have to view it as part of your responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
part of what you love about your job, and that then if you believe that and you believe the outcomes, then you will make the time in order to do it in
Yeah.
the right way.
So
Yeah.
I want to get to recognition because that's another thing that I think is valuable, and I'm interested to get your thoughts there. But let me stick on this for a second. I think so many times organizations have these checkpoints or these one-on-ones that are sort of just check the box, right? Like we have to do this, we have to do this, and they become more obligation than opportunity, which means okay, let's just okay, we got to meet, let's get this over with. What I'm sensing that you see it as opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to sit down with your people, and then that in tune, again, I'm kind of putting words in your mouth, but that in tune, hopefully your team sees it as opportunity. Like I have a chance. I don't have to. I get to sit down with Holly, have a one-on-one, talk about my, what are my, again, the way I want to grow in my career and some of the things that I'm doing right now, which is a big difference, right? Obligation means I have to. I'm not looking forward to it. Opportunity means I get to. I am looking forward to it. Did you find that your attitude towards these one-on-ones and your passion and authenticity sort of was contagious with your people?
I did get that feedback. Of course, I hope that that is true. I think if you make the meeting about them, then they can tell that the meeting is about them and their development and that you're truly seeking to learn from them. And of course, you can set it up that way too, versus you're meeting with that person to get information from them to help yourself, right? And those are good meetings to have as well, right? But when people truly understand that the conversation is how do we help them succeed, it's a different type of conversation. And I think that's where you can truly get value on building connections with others and building longer term lasting relationships as well as building engagement at the organization.
Awesome. You mentioned recognition too. Again, I use the words authentic and sincere. I think everything we do have to be authentic and sincere. They can't be kind of
Hmm.
this BS because people can read through that.
For sure.
But you also you said you track it. There's action plans around it. What have you found, or what are you finding, is the best way to recognize people? Where, and also, here's the other thing, Holly, is that recognition sometimes it's not about you giving me recognition because you might be authentic and sincere. Sometimes it's about me accepting it. It's not normal a lot of times, right? To get the recognition, we don't get enough of it. So, what are some of those things that you're finding to really leverage recognition in a way that creates encouragement and engagement and really sets people up for future success?
So one thing that we have done is we literally have an Excel spreadsheet with all of our employees, and we have in some jotted notes from individual conversations on how each person likes to be recognized. And then at our leadership meetings, we talk about some of our key successes. And then at the end of the meeting, we look at the spreadsheet and say, okay, is there anyone that deserves to be recognized for some of the key successes we previously mentioned? And we'll make a note, and then we follow up in the next meeting to make sure that whoever was on board or on point to perform the recognition, that we followed up and that we did it. And it seems super tactical. And some folks on the team were worried, oh, well, is it going to still be authentic that we're tracking something on a
Mhm.
spreadsheet? Um, but I will tell you, like the accountability of just making sure that we're doing it and it's getting done, and recognition is getting done across where it's due, and it's not just happening at the higher levels of the organization; it's happening across all levels of the organization. It needs a process around it, and often I think that's where things fall down with recognition. Is there's a huge desire for everyone who wants to do it as a leader, but there isn't a process, there isn't a check-in and accountability, so sometimes it flows to the bottom of the list when other actions are needed at the company. So I think just by having a tactical method in place has helped us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think really having recognition that's again authentic and sincere can really create tailwinds for the organization. And it sounds like, and a lot of times, like you mentioned, it might just might not be organized or formalized inside organizations where, and sometimes it's easy when those things aren't organized and formalized to sort of go to the wayside because we're all busy, right? Or it's easy for me not to, or to justify why I didn't do it. But it seems like at Sargento, it's intentional. It's formalized. There's a process around it, and there's checks and balances to make sure that that stuff shows up. Which also means that when it shows up, it becomes an expectation, right? So it's not a departure from the norm. Which again, a lot of times, when recognition isn't there and somebody gets it, it feels weird because it's not normal. Does that make sense?
Abnormal. Yeah,
Yeah.
and are also I think that that goes for some leadership level recognition, but we also want to foster peer-to-peer recognition as well. And I think that's an maybe equally as important element. So there are different things that we've done to try to encourage that through certificates or ability for people to take others out to lunch or shout outs we do at different meetings. So I think there's just some different tactics to try to encourage that peer-to-peer recognition, which we also find, at least in talking with others, they almost value that recognition even more so than leadership recognition. And so, how do you create the forum for that to happen? And we even have things like shout outs on our company website and monthly videos and different avenues for people to recognize others. And that has proven to be really meaningful for employees too.
That's great. So, backing up, some of your tips are one, recognizing individuals as individuals and having individual development plans, spending time to understand those individual development plans and things that you can do to support as a leader, tracking those things and making sure you're moving that forward. Recognition, which is a big one, and then just taking time, right? Almost potentially even carving out time to do these activities because we're all busy, and if we don't plan for them, they can easily get crowded out, which I think are all anchor points to leadership. And I think that those things are things that sometimes you get to make excuses why you can't do them because of all the plates that you're spinning. Anything else in that realm? And then there's another. I want to get back to the teamwork and the product development here in just a minute. But anything else that you would say for leaders that really want to create an environment or foster an environment that allows people to show up at their best and drive the results that they're asked to drive?
I think, another thing that we've heard from our employees too is listening to them and having a forum for them to be able to provide feedback. And I'm not necessarily talking about an annual survey. Certainly we do that as well. But what are the right forums to have in order for employees to be heard? Because many of them have great ideas about how to make improvements at the company. Their ideas are in their head. They want to get those ideas out and hopefully drive some change. That's what, excited, engaged employees want to do. So, how do you also create forums to be able to listen to their ideas in a safe way, and then be able to take some action on them is something that we're working on next, so that we can make sure that we're getting all of that valuable information and data and also getting the ability for those employees to feel engaged and that they're working on even bigger opportunities at the company as well.
The key thing that you said there, Holly, is that you guys are taking action on those things, right? I think a lot of times people get idea fatigue because they throw out all these ideas and then nothing really happens. But you guys are
Yeah.
following through with those things, which I think is a vital piece. I think listening is important. But if we're just checking the box, not saying you guys are, because I know you're not, but if you're just checking the box, then it's going to have an adverse impact eventually. So you guys are listening, taking ideas, helping, showing that innovation, and then, seeing those things through. And if I give an idea that changes, a process or changes something within the company, it excites me to potentially get creative and think about more ideas. So I think that's another leverage point that is so valuable that leaders can take advantage of. Let's
Mhm.
get to your role right now, new products, getting your team to work together. Here's what I know. Again, I'm over my skis on this, but here's what I know at a very high level. When it comes to new products and research and development, it's an opportunity to get creative. It's an opportunity to play around. It's an opportunity to understand what the market wants and what the consumers want. But then when you go to market, you want zero defects, right? You want to make sure that you've done all your homework, that really put something on the shelf that is going to create the outcomes and goals that you set forth with that product. Talk to us about kind of the behind the scenes and what you guys are doing and looking at without sharing any trade secrets, but like what are some of the things that you're doing to continuously to expand the Sargento brand, expand the products that you offer, and then a little bit into the process of how that works and the efforts. Does it take years? Is it months? How many do you go through before you're like, okay, we found that one? Just give us some insights there.
Yeah. Well, companies to do this, particularly in food. One of the most exciting ways to engage with your consumers, with your end consumer, is bringing new products that they're excited about. We love when we have consumers that are posting about our products or showing them or demoing them or trying them, talking about them on social media, because we know that then, hey, it's resonating, and that they're, excited about what they're seeing. So it can be a really, really cool space. And in order to have that product resonate, you really have to take consumers along with you on the journey. So we do things like focus groups. We look at different tools that are out there to gather consumer feedback on our ideas as we go through the process, which helps us shape them, which provides information on how we'll improve them and make them better so that when we bring them to shelf, they are meeting those high quality of expectations that we have internally at Sargento and that we know that our consumers have as well for our products. So that consumer feedback along the whole journey, along the life cycle of that product, at various different touch points is absolutely critical for us. And we invest heavily in doing that. I'll just tell you a really fun example.
Yeah.
So this year we tried a new tool where you literally put your new product ideas out in a focus group, but people do it right on their iPhone and they swipe left or they swipe right if they like the idea or they don't.
Okay.
So we called it Cheese Tinder, which we thought was really funny. But it was great because it gave us a really quick, realistic reaction of what consumers do when they're at the shelf at a grocery store when they're deciding, am I going to buy this? Am I going to put it in my cart or not? And then we got that valuable feedback, which helped us prioritize certain projects that we were considering doing. So that's
Are
just one
there,
example.
is there, do you have like, and maybe this is not, maybe it's not an exact science, but are there like, we're going to explore, and now in your space, it might be a little bit differently, but we're going to explore, 5 new products and one's going to go to market, or every product that we explore, our goal is that it goes to market. What are some of the behind the curtain there?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly we start with a broad range of ideas. And then I think of it like a funnel, and I think a lot of new product folks would tell you that that is kind of how that works for them. Is you start with a broad base of ideas. You want to be as creative as possible. Think outside of the box. Don't put a lot of limiters in your mind when you're starting to ideate or innovate. And then over time, as you start to get more feedback, then you can narrow those ideas, refine them down to create a more narrow funnel of those that you would ultimately invest in and pursue. So ours starts very broad with hundreds of different ideas, and then we might launch 2 or 3 new product platforms in a year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal to launch a new product. I mean, it's not, there's a lot of
There's
strategy
a
and,
lot of
go to
investment that
market.
goes
Yeah,
into that.
that goes into that. What has been, because also I think my goal is to, even for me, Holly, right? Like, and I don't mean, don't take this the wrong way, but you think of Sargento, you think of cheese, which I know you have many different different iterations of cheese, and there's a lot of things that you guys do. But what's the latest? What was one of the latest products that you just went to market with? Maybe the one that you were talking about earlier, where somebody bought it in front of you at the grocery store. What's something that's new
Yeah.
on the shelf?
Yeah, so we just came out with the first natural American cheese on the marketplace. So I'm sure you've had American cheese.
Yep.
Probably many of your listeners have had that as well, right? But what people may or may not know is that to date, American cheese is made with fillers. It's actually a processed cheese. And as we know from talking with our consumers and even some of our other customers at the retail stores, consumers these days don't want processed food. Many want natural food that they can feel good about the ingredient label, and yet they want it to taste great too. So we actually spent many years in R&D working the right science to take out processed elements from the cheese, but still get that great natural American flavor that you want to have in your grilled cheese or your burger. And we've succeeded in doing that. We've brought it to market. We've won a number of awards, including People Magazine and Good Housekeeping, and it's doing excellent at market. We're super excited. So definitely check that out for your next grilling occasion or your grilled cheese or anytime that you want to use a great tasting slice of American cheese. But those, as an example, it takes time to come up
Sure.
with something that we felt is really quality and was going to be successful in market.
Yeah. So, you know, like a lot of spaces, there's a lot of options in the cheese space, right? So, why Sargento? Why should consumers put Sargento at the top of the list?
Sargento is a family-owned company. All of our products are made here in the United States, in the state of Wisconsin. We still have a family heritage. We're owned by the same company that founded us, and our founding principles were quality, quality that you can taste, and that's part of our family promise.
Hmm.
So, quality, taste, melt, aroma, that is what we promise to our consumers, and we only bring the highest quality to the dairy case. And our consumers consistently tell us that they can taste that difference. And so we're really proud of the products that we bring over our, particularly over our competitor set.
That's great. I think I'm going to have to. I mean, even for me, I think you've converted me to more of a Sargento fan. Let me put it that way. Just in
Well,
our
good.
conversation, I'll make
But
sure that
we
we.
really believe that at our heart. We're people we're people here. It's a mid-sized company, and we believe in what we're doing. And we used to one of our past taglines was persnickety people, persnickety cheese. And so we still have that at our heart. We're like very particular about what we do to make sure that we're bringing the very best. And everything that we do is natural, real food, not artificial. So that is also really resonating with our consumer set too.
Well, I mean, you mentioned it earlier. I mean, that's a lot of consumers now are demanding that or wanting that, right? Because it's trying to get out of
Hmm.
the processed. I mean, the kind of that's just right now that's bubbling, and but you guys have always had it. You've been present there, so it's not like you're
Hmm.
a lot of switches and changes. That's just who you
Yeah.
are, and that's how you show up in the marketplace, which is has to be an advantage. Not to say that we're trying to um, talk ill of other competitors, but you know what I mean.
Oh, no,
So it's just,
no, we
but
really
it's
don't.
something that Sargento. What I appreciate about this, Holly, is Sargento, yourself as a leader, you're very confident in your platform, right? You're not trying to disparage anything else or talk about anybody else. You're just showing up what highlights and what are the values that you bring to the table that authentically you have passion behind. And I think that today is a lot of times lacking with leaders and lacking with organizations is they lose their why. You mentioned that earlier, right? Like we lose our why, or we're just chasing profits, or and listen, that's all important. We need to have profits and we need to have results, and that's what fuels companies and fuels growth. But to me, Sargento is a growth company and continuously growing. That's a byproduct of the values and the principles and putting people first. And because of all those things are in place and they're anchor points within Sargento, it's allowing that growth and fueling that revenue and the results that you're driving on an everyday basis. Is that a fair analysis?
Yeah, I would absolutely say that's true. One other thing I thought I would mention too that I think has really helped us build and sustain a culture here is our involvement in the community.
Hmm.
So, our founders have always felt that being involved in the community is imperative for who we are as a company. And employees are encouraged to volunteer at various organizations in the community surrounding our buildings where we have production facilities. And we, as a corporate organization, give back both in volunteer hours and monetary donations and food donations, particularly to help fight hunger. And and because of that, the employees are really proud of that part of our company. We do an employee survey every year, and that we always get outstanding scores for the question on does Sargento have the right values, and are we involved? Are we proud of the work that we do in our community? And I do think that really is a huge help in curating our culture because people want to work somewhere that they're proud of, and that's a way to just even bolster the culture that we have. And other organizations are doing amazing things out there as well. And I think that's part of their story. And I just wanted to make sure to mention that community element because it really is about something that's bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, and the other thing that has resonated through this conversation is that it's a focus. You're intentionally look. It's not something that, again, it's not just a slogan on the wall or something that you say or part of the strategy. It's an ongoing focus to make sure that these things are present, right? The recognition, the community involvement, people's growth patterns, understanding, how to individually help each person be successful in their role. These aren't things that just kind of happen, in an annual meeting in January, right? I mean, it's something that is kind of just, again, ever evolving, just part of the everyday fabric with inside the organization that allows you to create that, continue to have the culture of that was, originally started with the first generation, which is, hire the good people, quality people, and that just continues as you guys grow, which I think is, which is a testament to the organization, a testament to you and the things that you drive, within your team and the products that you put out there. And it is interesting how, you talked about you bring the consumer along from the very beginning because the consumer ultimately is the judge, jury, and ultimately they're going to decide if they're going to put the product in their cart or not. So I think that was interesting. If people want to go out and explore all the different products within Sargento, is it sargento.com? I forgot. Give me the website again.
Yes, sargento.com. Yep.
And then are there any major like social media platforms that people engage with you on or people can go make, comments or talk about the good products that you have?
Yes, we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We often post some really fun videos with great recipes on all those accounts that you can use with our products. So those are a lot of fun. We get great feedback on those too. Particularly when we come out with new products, we offer great recipes for our consumers to utilize to make the most of what we're bringing to the market. So
That is awesome, Holly. I appreciate your time today. Thank you for giving us a little bit of insight to Sargento's culture and your career and your what you're doing to add value to not only Sargento but the consumers that buy the products. And I could see that we might have a part two on this. So it was great meeting you, great getting to know you, and keep making awesome stuff happen.
thanks, Chad. It was a pleasure to be here. I really enjoyed it.
All right, see you,
We'll
Holly.
talk with you soon.
All right,
Okay,
bye bye.
bye.